announcement has been paid for by the new Howl Order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, last night's show was fun. If you didn't join us on the NFC East Super Friends stream, shame on you. But that might not be your scene either. You might have been at work. You might have had other things going on. Whatever the case may be, you missed a great show. It was fun, as it always is. But, in doing that show and then kind of thinking back on how things have gone throughout the last maybe 4 or 5 shows, it's become apparent to me where we sit in the NFC East pantheon of teams and how we're viewed. And I don't blame anybody for feeling the way that they feel about us. But as a Duke Blue Devils fan, for many years, we would look down our nose at Maryland, and they would always look at us as their chief rival, the team they wanted to beat the most. And we could care less about Maryland, and we would try to belittle them at every turn, and we would try to make them feel like they weren't a rival, like we didn't care about them. But we did, right? We wanted to beat Maryland. We wanted to beat North Carolina. We wanted to beat Virginia. We wanted to beat the teams in the ACC, and Maryland was one of our biggest rivals, but we would look down at them as if they were nothing, right? Try to make them feel like they were inferior. Like, we don't care about you. You're not even a big time team. We don't care, right? But deep down, we always wanted to beat Maryland, okay? And they always played us tough, and it was always tough going to Maryland. And so it was always one of those fun rivalries. Anyway, as a Duke Blue Devils fan, I know how it felt to try to make another team feel less than, right? So I feel like I'm on the other end of that equation now. Now I'm the team that wants respect, that feels like, hey, y'all are disrespecting us. Y'all are acting as if we don't exist. And the other teams are like, no, because you don't, right? And so I can sit here and scream at the top of my lungs, demand respect. The only way we're going to get it is if we start beating these teams in the division and start winning football games and become relevant again, which I think is going to start this season, by the way. However, it's going to take wins against teams like Philadelphia in games like this one that we're going to play in week 4 that are going to put us in a position to start doing that. Now, last week was an abject disaster, and a lot of you seem to, buy into this notion of you lost 37-3. We suck. There's no positives that you take from this game. And for the ones that, I've seen some of the comments in the comment section. I know some of these peons aren't Washington fans. So they didn't watch the game. And even if they did watch the game, they didn't watch the film. So they have no idea. But even watching the game, if you come away from that game thinking Washington didn't move the ball, Washington didn't get pressure on Josh Allen, Washington didn't do this, they didn't do that, they didn't stop the run, this, that, and the third, then you didn't watch the game, right? And so I don't have time to argue with people who, and this is why I generally don't, right? When I go to the barbershop and I see frivolous football conversations being had, I don't insert myself. I just sit quietly and mind my business because I don't feel like wasting my breath talking to people who don't get it. So sometimes I get into that on those streams and it bothers me because I get it. They don't understand, right? But at the end of the day, I know what I saw and I know what this team is capable of. And I'm pretty confident that this team is in a position right now. Now, they got a lot of growing to do. And again, we're far from a finished product. We got a lot of things we got to clean up, a lot of additions that we have to make to this team, a lot of pieces that we have to add to put ourselves in an upper echelon conversation. We're not there yet. Clearly, that Bills game was a big indicator that we have a long way to go. But what we don't have a long way to go from is being a playoff team and being able to beat teams like Philadelphia and Dallas and the Giants. You don't have to be a Super Bowl contender to beat the teams in our division. Okay, because sans for Philadelphia, none of the other teams in the division are Super Bowl contending teams. And the Eagles are beatable because we've done it before. And if you've watched them this season, don't look at me in my face with a straight face and tell me that they're not beatable, because they are. They're not as good as they were last year. It's despite what they try to tell you, and despite how they try to dance around the issues that exist with their football team right now, winning masks a lot, and they're 3-0, so you're able to sweep shit under the rug until you get beat like we did to them last year, and then all of a sudden, they got to go out and get defensive tackles because they can't stop the run. They couldn't stop the run before they played us, and we just highlighted it on a national stage, and they got beat, and all of a sudden, they had issues to address. That's how these things go. We got a chance to expose the Eagles for what they are. Right now, the Eagles, they're not fraudulent, but they're getting by with a lot of shit that normally wouldn't fly in this league. Again, they should have lost in week 2 to Minnesota. Anybody that watched that game saw the Eagles dominated defensively by that offense of the Minnesota Vikings that was going up and down the field, but fumbling the football. Every time they touched it, it seemed like somebody was putting it on the turf. And I don't know if you've been watching, but Jalen Hurts doesn't look clean right now as far as a passer is concerned. I think he's thrown a pick in just about every single game that they've played in this season. If not a pick, at least a turnover. I know he fumbled against the New England Patriots in week 1. I know he threw a pick in week 2, and I knew he threw 2 picks in week 3. When you look at where we are in the pantheon of teams in this division, even though the Giants absolutely suck, they made the playoffs last year and they won a game, okay? They won a game in the playoffs, on the road no less. So while we like to look down our nose at the Giants, and they've beaten us a lot more than we have beaten them of late, specifically with Daniel Jones. When he hasn't played, they haven't beaten us. But when he does play, they usually do beat us. That's a trend that has to end this season, and I vow that it will. But again, they made the playoffs and they won a game last year. They get more respect than we do nationally. And among the fan bases, like the Eagles fans are, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of the Eagles fans are bird brains, absolutely clueless, right? And so you read some of the comments and some of the super chats that they sent in, and I can't help but laugh, and it's funny because a lot of them are younger fans too, so they don't really know anything but Washington being a disaster and a dumpster fire. So I can't blame them for thinking that we're the worst team in the division and we're the worst franchise in the division. Historically, too, I've seen comments where they think historically we're the worst. And I'm like, the Eagles have 1 Super Bowl, bro. We have 3. So historically, really? But again, they don't know any better. Only been a fan for 15 years, and all 15 of those years you've sucked ass. Got it. I don't have a comeback for that, okay? All I can do is continue to hope that this team changes the narrative by changing where we are in present day. Right now, we're a 2-1 football team. And I'm not ashamed of it. I don't care who we've played. You're not going to try to belittle or demean our 2-1 start. I don't really give a shit who you think we played or how bad these teams are and whatever, this, that, and the third. I don't care that the Dolphins hung 70 points on the Denver Broncos. We put 35 on them. I'm not ashamed of my 35 because Miami put 70 on them. That means I should have put 35 on them. You go and put 35 on them then. At the end of the day, we are 2-1. We are a team that right now has a lot of positives going on. Despite some of the negative that you may see out there and how some of the other teams and their fans in the division want to tear us down, we got a lot of positive shit going on. First things first, we got new ownership. That in itself counts for a lot, okay? We've already had that discussion all off season. And so that in itself is a reason to rejoice and celebrate. Number 2, I still believe in Eric Bieniemy. I think he's going to be great for this team. Listen to him talk today. We'll talk about what he had to say. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that continues to be a stabilizing force for this football team. He is exactly what this team needs. There's a form of discipline that comes with EB that we've lacked for quite some time. And I think this is going to be good for this team. Even though some of his philosophies are not in line with mine, I've already said this. I don't care as long as we win, and that's all he's about. Okay. 3, we got a quarterback. And some people within the fan base don't believe it. That's fine. Nobody outside of the fan base believes it. And that's perfectly okay by me. But I know one when I see one, right? He is a winning caliber quarterback in this league. And not just a game manager, not just a guy you get by with. He's not a Desmond Ridder or a Jared Goff. He's a guy that is actually a guy that can take over a ball game. He's a quarterback that has the skill set and the traits to be able to put a team on his back and will them to a victory. He's not at that level yet, but I know that it's there because I saw him do it with an entire program in college, and I know he's capable of doing some of those similar things at the next level. All right? So now it's about getting the most out of Sam Howell. And that's what EB is aiming to do. And if he's able to do that, if he's able to unlock Sam Howell's true ability and consistently get him to play the kind of football that I know he's capable of playing, we're going to change how people view us in this division. Because right now, we are the little sisters of the poor. We're like a redheaded stepchild right now. Nobody respects us. You know, I know L.B. deep down inside, and those Eagles fans, and some Eagles fans do, I know they realize that there's certain matchups in the division that just aren't a good matchup for you. Like, for whatever reason, the Giants haven't been a good matchup for us. And I've felt like this all along. It's because we haven't had a quarterback, you know. But it's also because Daniel Jones has just been running wild on us and, you know, dinking and dunking, but it's been wildly effective against us. And whatever it has taken, he's been able to do against us. For some reason, I can't explain it. And it started way before Daniel Jones. We've had Eli Manning problems for years. For whatever reason, the Giants have just never been a good matchup for us. Dallas, in a similar vein, has never really been a good matchup for us. For whatever reason, we're getting better at defeating the Dallas Cowboys. We're not afraid of them. At one point, I was truly afraid of Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys because I felt like we were never going to beat them. It almost felt like it took a miracle to beat Dallas. And we could be winning the entire game and something stupid would happen at the end, right? But I feel like we've leveled the playing field with Dallas as well. I think we are the best matchup for the Philadelphia Eagles in the division. They don't want to admit that because everybody views us as being trash, and they want to feel they look at Dallas as their chief rival because Dallas wins 10, 11, 12 games every year as long as Dak is healthy. And so they view Dallas as their chief rival, and they try to demean us and say, "Hey man, back up. This is an adult conversation. You don't belong in this." I think it's time we insert ourselves into this conversation permanently. A win on the road in Philadelphia in week 4 announces to the rest of the division. Forget about the rest of the league. I'm not out for that. In order to get respect nationally, you got to get respect in your division first. You want respect in the division, you got to start winning games in the division on the road. It's cool to win at home. You need to protect home turf, but you want real respect, go on somebody else's home turf and snatch it away. We got a chance to do that. And in the process, elevate ourselves in the pantheon of teams in this division. Let's get to in other news. So we heard from the coordinators today. It was coordinators Thursday, as it always is. So we heard from offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio. We'll get to what was said between the two of them. However, let's first take a look at the injury report for week number 4. Now, I told you ours is pretty clean. As you can see, everybody practiced except for Chris Rodriguez Jr. And I've been telling you that anything with an illness is day-to-day. So he was limited yesterday with an illness. He did not practice, so that would tell you that it probably got a little bit worse. He might feel a little bit better tomorrow and be limited, or he might be full go tomorrow. He might not practice again tomorrow, might start to feel better by Saturday, and then by Sunday he feels great and he's active, right? So again, these things are day by day. Everybody else, pretty much nothing to worry about. The last three guys won't even be on the injury report, and Percival Butler probably won't be either, but he's been limited the last 2 days, so he may be questionable when we get to Friday and we declare game statuses. But this is a clean injury report. This is as clean as it's going to get for week 4. All right, so I'm feeling really good about where we sit from an injury standpoint. Meanwhile, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I told you their injury report is a joke. So I don't buy anything that I see with them. I remember last year they had like 20 guys on their injury report and all of them played. It was stupid, right? So I look at their injury report and I don't respect it. However, I do respect hamstring injuries. Justin Evans with a neck, that's pretty significant as well. So those two at the top that didn't practice today, didn't practice yesterday, there's a realistic shot that those guys don't play on Sunday. Quez Watkins, hamstring, practiced today. I surmise he'll be ready to go on Sunday. Britton Covey, hamstring, full participant. You know the drill. Fletcher Cox, you know he's going to play. Zach Cunningham, full participant. You know what it is. Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickinson, Boston Scott, all were full participants except for Cam Jurgens. He was limited. He's going to play, all right? And then Devonta Smith had an illness, right, which is the same thing. And it's going around. My son has an illness right now, right? So, like, this is the season, right? We know what we're getting ourselves into. I expect Devonta Smith to be fine by Sunday, right? Like I said, look at an illness as day to day. He may not practice today. He might not feel great tomorrow. But Saturday he feels better, and then Sunday he's fine, right? And he plays. So I assume he's going to play, just like most of these guys on this injury report for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it'll be, like I said, it won't be anybody major out of the team as we go into this game, and I think it'll be pretty evenly matched from that standpoint. But let's talk about what the coordinators had to say today. So heard from Eric Bieniemy, and when EB speaks, I listen. So EB stepped up to the podium today, and he talked about last week first, and he's like, yeah, we got our asses kicked pretty good, and it's a part of the game. You know, shit happens, and, you know, what's important is what you do in the aftermath of that and how you respond to adversity. And the one thing that I've been proud of with this team to this point this season is they've responded to adversity well. Even in the game, and I know it sounds crazy and people think I'm nuts for, you know, giving them credit in a 37-3 loss. But I thought they responded in the game, especially the defense. That's the biggest takeaway for me from that game was how well the defense played, despite not being their sharpest on third downs, but despite not containing Josh Allen. And that's a problem. If you look at what mobile quarterbacks have done against us this year, Russell Wilson had a really good game against us running the football. Josh Allen obviously had a nice game running the ball. That's been a problem for us. And so Hurts has never really broken our back with his legs, but we know he's fully capable. So we're going to have to make sure that he hasn't been a huge part of the run game because he hasn't had to be really this season to this point because the run game has been so prolific with the backs. So we'll see what happens in this game. But in saying all of that, when I look at the defense in the game from Sunday, they had every right to fold on us and this game not even be close midway through the third with all the mistakes that were made. They could have quit on us a long time before the mid stages of the fourth quarter when the wheels fell off of this thing. And most of that wasn't even their fault. Antonio Gibson's fumble was at like the 25-yard line. And now you're trying to stop the Bills from getting in the end zone. And you send a blitz and you get there, but you don't get him down and he walks in the end zone. And then the next possession is a pick six and it's 30-0. And again, what did you really do other than not defend 25 yards of grass, right? So defensively, I thought they showed up and gave us a shot. And I was appreciative of that. Because it could have easily been 50-3 in this game. Had the defense not showed up, Josh Allen would have had a ball cap on in the third quarter, not the fourth quarter. So EB talked about adversity and overcoming that. And he's like, look, you know what Sam didn't do in the game? Is he didn't quit. And I said the same thing. I said, you guys, Sam was still throwing BBs at the end of this thing, right? Like, I've seen quarterbacks pack it in at the end of games knowing that shit's over and they got their asses kicked and it wasn't their day. And Sam was still out there competing. And so there are some good things that you can take from it. There are a lot of bad, but you clean those things up. You clean those things up and you move forward. And EB says it starts with me. I got to do a better job of putting guys in positions to succeed and having these guys ready. And, you know, everybody's got a job to do. Everybody's got a role in what happened on Sunday. And everybody's got to be better. And I'm going to start with myself. I'm going to be better. The staff's going to be better. And the players will be better. And we'll be better prepared. And we'll be ready on Sunday, you know. And so they tried to ask him a slew of questions to kind of focus in on specific positions. Hey, you know, Terry talked about wide receiver spacing and, you know, with the targets for the receivers. Are you throwing the ball too much? Should you run it more? Brian Robinson wants more touches. And he just wasn't getting into that. He just kept repeating the same rhetoric over and over again because in his heart of hearts, he's like, look, every single position group had a hand in what happened. Every single member of the coaching staff had a part to do with what happened on Sunday. We're not going to separate anybody. We're not going to target or specifically look at a specific group. We all got to be better, and we all will be better. There's a standard that we've set for ourselves, and we did not achieve that. And until we do, we will have a problem, and we will have to continue to try to solve that problem. And so he talked about collectively, as he always likes to say, dragging our asses across the finish line. And he's like, I don't care about stats, which as a fan, I don't care about stats either. But I do understand that there is a pecking order on this team of who should be getting more involved than other players. I'm not this guy that, hey, whatever the play calls for, that's where the ball goes. I'm more about, hey, how do I get X, Y, and Z more touches because they're more talented and they can affect the game more so than J, F, and K, right? Like I don't want to hear about, man, Byron Pringle was open so we threw him the ball. That's cool, but I'm trying to get Terry McLaurin open. I'm trying to get Jahan Dotson the ball. I'm trying to get Curtis Samuel more touches. I'm trying to get Antonio Gibson in space. I'm trying to get Brian Robinson more opportunities. Like, these are the guys that can affect change in the game, right? I'm not looking to get John Bates more opportunities. I'm cool with Logan Thomas getting some opportunities, but I'm not looking for him to lead the team in targets. I don't want to hear about, oh, the progressions took us to Logan, so he's got 9 catches on 13 targets. Meanwhile, Terry's got 3 catches on 5 targets. And again, I saw the film, and I saw guys open and Sam sticking on his first read. But my thing is, how about we make Jahan the primary read? How about we make Curtis the primary read, right? Like, how about we call plays specifically to get guys involved? That is my thing. And I'm not saying you have to do that on every single snap. I'm just saying it would be beneficial to you to get your playmakers, the guys that can impact the game the most, opportunities. And whether that means calling a play specifically for them, or if it means, putting them in the position where they're the first read on a play, the first progression, some of that's on Sam too, to go through his progressions and find the open receiver. But he's like, I don't care about stats. And, he kind of danced around the Brian Robinson question. Sounded like, hey, we're not running the ball any more than we've already been running this shit. So that's that. We're going to continue. He's like, yeah, you got to run the ball. And this is actually shocking coming from a running back. But again, the NFL is a passing league, so I'm not surprised. But he's like, yeah, you got to run the ball. But in this league, you got to be able to throw it too. And so we need to give every opportunity to our quarterback to let him know that we believe in him, that we trust that he's going to be able to go out and make plays and do the right things. And so sounds like they're not really going to change their philosophical approach. So look, as long as we're winning, I'm not complaining. But if we're not getting the job done, and we still sitting here talking about targets for our best receivers, not enough runs in the run game, then it's a problem, right? But we'll see. I still trust in EB because, again, guys were open, right? So, and we're moving the ball every week. That's the thing that's frustrating is you're moving the ball. I thought the worst game we had from a moving the ball standpoint was week 1 against Arizona. I thought that was the worst game in terms of moving the football. We moved it up and down against Denver. All right, we moved it up and down, I felt like, against Buffalo. Our problem with turnovers, right? Mistakes. But we were moving the football. It was disappointing that you only come away with 3 points in a game where you're moving the football. I felt like we were moving the football a ton in that game. But we couldn't get out of our own way. So we'll see what happens. As far as Jack Del Rio is concerned, he wasn't in the mood to give out anything as usual, per usual. However, he did talk about the tush push. He shares the same ideology as I do on that. That's not a football play, and it's not just because the Eagles are the best at it. And he even said, look, they are the best at it, but this ain't rugby. And that's the same exact thing that I said. This ain't rugby. That's not football right there. And I think the only way you're going to get that play out is if everybody starts doing it and it becomes like this 100%, conversion rate where it becomes almost like it's cheating, and that's when they have to take a look at it. If either that or people get injured, and I don't think anybody's going to get injured on a quarterback sneak. They've been doing a quarterback sneak for eons, so that's not going to be the reason. I think it's going to be because it becomes this competitive advantage that the league doesn't want. But right now, if Eagles are the only team doing it and you're not seeing a ton of teams doing it, like everybody needs to get on board with this and start doing it and converting with it so that the league can say, nah, we got to stop doing this because it's trash. Really, it is. But that's nor here nor there. He talked about, Sam Howell. He talked about Jalen Hurts because a lot of questions aimed at Jalen Hurts and his development. And he talked about, admiration for him when he was at Alabama, how he handled that whole situation with Tua coming in and taking his job and how he didn't transfer out immediately and ended up helping them win the SEC championship game, before transferring over to Oklahoma, in which I thought was really a big part of his maturation process and getting drafted into the NFL. Those leadership qualities and things of that nature. Jack spoke to all of that because Jalen's a different dude, man. He's a special guy, and he's continued to evolve and develop over the life of his career. And to the detriment of this division, he's turned out to be really good. We didn't think he would, and here he is playing at a high level. But right now, the run game is what's powering this Eagles offense. And Jack is like, look, man, they got a dynamic offense. It starts with their offensive line. Their run game has been extremely good. DeAndre Swift has been one of the best backs in the NFL to the start of the season. And so we got a hell of a challenge on our hands, and we'll take it as such and see what we can get done in week number 4, right? So, everything that Jack said is on par with what Jack usually says. And so, they tried to get into Emmanuel Forbes specifically. I saw some things in terms of Emmanuel Forbes and where he ranks among corners, rookie corners, and things of that nature. And I'd look at it, and Christian Gonzalez was like 4th on that list. Christian Gonzalez has been the best rookie corner this year to this point. It's early. He's played against upper echelon competition this season to the start. Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and they had the Jets, and obviously Zach Wilson stinks, but he had to deal with Garrett Wilson. He's had the much stiffer competition, and he's held his own. So, and he's out there, and he's getting targeted. And our guy isn't playing as much. So I think Forbes has been fine. He's got an interception under his belt. So it's not like he's a slouch out there. But at the end of the day, he's like, look, I want the same thing out of Forbes that I want out of all our guys. I want them to compete. I want them to dive into the game plan for the week. I want them to go out there, execute as fast as they can, and also have fun. I want the same thing for all the guys that are out there on the defensive side of the football. So you didn't get anything extra out of Jack. But moving on, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles a little bit more and get behind enemy lines. So in talking about the Eagles, the biggest thing that I look at with them right now is their run game and then their defensive line. So really this game is going to be a game won in the trenches. We talked specifically about this against Buffalo last week, and I actually thought we did a tremendous job of stopping the run. And I have had so many fans yesterday of, the Eagles and Cowboys and the Giants keep bringing up that we're 22nd in the league. Again, they're not watching, because if you've watched us, no running back has really had a prolific day against us except for Buffalo's James Cook. And again, he had a 34-yard run on that final drive when the game was pretty much over and the defense had already packed it in for the day. All right, when the game was in the balance for the first 3 quarters, James Cook was extremely quiet, and we kept him under wraps. His longest run might have been maybe 7 yards max. All right, and you go look at the game prior against Denver. Russell Wilson was their leading rusher in that game, right? He hurt us more so than their running back. So, again, if you want to look at that statistic and you want to run with it, knock yourself out. But I know what I see from our run defense, and I know what we're capable of. And we're going to have to do that on Sunday if we want to have a chance to beat Philadelphia. If we can't get that done, we're going to be in some trouble, because I feel like the only way you're going to beat Philadelphia is to force Jalen Hurts to have to beat you. And right now, last year, he was playing at an MVP level. He wasn't turning the ball over. He was finding his receivers. They were making big plays. They were explosive and dynamic. They kept you on your toes. Shane Steichen, they're missing him. I don't care what anybody says. And again, it's early for their new offensive coordinator, and he's going to have to figure some things out, just like it's early for everyone, especially if you got new parts and you got all these moving parts for your team. I get all of that, but I'm glad we're catching him early, because I still think he's working out the kinks. And we got a chance. If we can shut down the run, slow that thing down and force Hurts to beat us, I think we'll have a chance. And whether it's miscommunications or, it's a tipped ball, I don't really care. I think we'll have an opportunity to get our hands on some footballs, pick off Jalen Hurts, and make some plays in this game and really turn the tide and give ourselves a chance. So on offense, it's all about stopping the run and making Hurts beat us. All right. And if you can do that, I like our chances. On the defensive side, I think it's the same thing. In the trenches, we got to be able to stay balanced. We got to be able to block their front. And it's not necessarily our guys against their guys, right? Because at the end of the day, we know that it's a mismatch if we're just looking at it from their defensive line against our offensive line. Their defensive line is better than our offensive line. We know that. That's a fact. So this isn't about one-on-one, mano-a-mano. It's about how do you scheme it up to take pressure off of an offensive line that is outmatched and outwitted in this game. And that's up to EB and his staff to figure out how to keep the Eagles on their toes defensively, so much so that they're not able to get into positions where they're able to take advantage of this offensive line. And whether that's running the ball, as we've talked about, whether it's the screen game, whether it's the quick game, you want to put yourself, whether it's max protect, whether it's chip in on the way out, they've got to find ways to give Sam more time. If you're going to run these long developing routes, if you're going to try to push the ball down the field, if you're going to try to get chunk plays, you're going to have to be able to protect long enough so Sam can allow those routes to develop and then deliver an accurate football. We had an opportunity to score a touchdown against Buffalo last week, and Sam didn't even have enough time to throw to an open Curtis Samuel for a touchdown. It would have been a touchdown. And he gets hit because Andrew Wiley gives up a pressure damn near untouched against a hezzy move that wasn't even all that great. And so, they've got to figure it out. If they can figure out a way to, because I think that secondary in Philadelphia is susceptible to giving up some stuff. It's not the same second. It's not the same linebackers. In conjunction, those linebackers and secondary members work in unison and in tandem with one another. Their group is not as good as it was last year. There is no TJ Edwards. There is no Kaiser White. All right, they're not the same. They've already lost Avonte Maddox. They can be taken advantage of on the back end if we can get to that by blocking the front four and being able to neutralize them to a degree. We know it's not going to be clean the entire game. We know we can't have the catastrophic mistake. Things are going to happen. Sacks, pressures, but we can't have, like we've had in the past, even last week, is when something goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong to the point where it impacts the outcome of the game. Case in point, last year, second game against the Giants. It seemed like last year, every time something went wrong, it went catastrophically wrong, and it ended up impacting the game. The first Giants game, the sack forced fumble of Taylor Heineke to start the second half. They don't score any other points in the second half other than the touchdown that they got from that great field position off the Heineke fumble. The second Giants game, we're dominating the game even though it doesn't show it on the scoreboard. It's 6-0. And then we give up a sack, forced fumble, scoop, and score a touchdown, and the game was never the same after that, right? It can't be some catastrophic, deal where you give up a sack and the ball comes out and the Eagles scoop it up and run for a touchdown, or the Eagles scoop it up and they're 1st and 10 from the Washington 19-yard line. Like, these are the things that can't transpire. Like, the mistakes are going to happen. There are going to be some plays made by the Eagles defense. They're really good. You can't have it be game-changing plays, however. We've got to minimize the impact that the mistakes that do happen are in the game. So, really what I see in this game, to me, it's really simple. I look at the Eagles. I see a very, very talented football team playing with an abundance of confidence because they've only lost one regular season. Well, they've only lost one regular season game with Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback. And last time I checked, he's starting this game. And I see a team that feels like they're going to be able to show up and show out in this game because we just got beat 37-3. And they feel like they're a much better team than us. They feel superior to us. And they're out for blood, right? They remember what we did to them last year at the Link. Don't think that they don't. And so don't think that they don't have this game circled on their calendar, because I've heard from people who are close to the team who have said this is one that they're looking forward to. So we better be ready on Sunday at 1 o'clock. Clearly, Vegas and everyone out there thinks we aren't any good. This line started at 7. It then went to 8.5. It's now at 9. Okay, we are now 9-point dogs on the road. Sound familiar to you? Because it sounds damn familiar to me. We were 11-point underdogs last year on the road at the Link. So we're 9 this year. Sounds like a nice opportunity to go in there and prove everybody wrong yet again. But it's going to take us executing. And the difference between last year and this year is we needed the Eagles' help last year. We needed them to turn the ball over. We needed them to make mistakes. We had to win time of possession. We had to do this. We had to do that. They had to do this. They had to do that for us to win the game. We don't need none of that shit this year. Just go out and execute our ball game, and that will be enough to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I promise you. But again, easier said than done, as we saw last week. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. Y'all know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys again tomorrow when we go through the game plan and the final outcome of the week 4 matchup. Should be a really good game. Looking forward to this opportunity that's exactly what this is. This is an opportunity. This isn't just a game. This is an opportunity for all the things that I talked about at the beginning of the show. This is an opportunity for us to make this season something else. You start 3-1 with the Bears coming up and then the Falcons after that. You start 3-1 with a win over the Eagles on the road, and you have a chance to then go to 4-1 and then potentially 5-1 if you take care of business. What are you going to think about this season then, right? You dropped to 2-2 and then you're thinking, okay, here we go. Got to fight for our lives. Got to find a way to beat Chicago on Thursday night to get back over 500, right? Got to find a way to get that done, lick your wounds, and then find a way to go on the road and beat Atlanta. Not going to be easy. Neither one of those games. Even though Chicago looks like they stink, still got to go out there and execute and take care of business. Beat Philadelphia and it changes everything. It's an opportunity. We got to seize it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.